Today, we are flashing my comic book nerd card. It is a hype day. We are talking about... I want to talk about what we can learn from The Dark Knight about ending a story. Because to me, The Dark Knight is the most thematic ending to a Batman film.
I think the Batman mythology, one of the reasons that it's continually interesting and is continually reinvented by new generations of comic book writers and artists and filmmakers, is because that essential paradox or that essential idea of a good vigilante, somebody who feels that they have to resort to criminal methods or be outside the system in order to fix the system. It's endlessly complex and interesting in its ethics.
First off, let's talk about how The Dark Knight plays on the idea of falling action. Falling action is a plot element you see in a good amount of story structure writing tools. The idea is that when the stakes are heightened, that's called rising action or rising tension. And once you get to the very top of the amount of action that your story will have, that is the climax. And then the story starts to go down into falling action, where things slow down until all conflicts are resolved. Usually, this may be the protagonist overcomes the antagonist at the climax of the film. Then we follow the protagonist tie up loose ends as they cement their arc. It's watching the superhero beat the villain and then save the innocent civilian from the villain's clutches. This is not how The Dark Knight uses falling action, though. Batman doesn't beat the Joker, save the people on the boats, then talk to Alfred in a way that's like,
I learned something today. I learned that Jewish people are okay.
No, Batman beats the Joker, and then there's more. Batman just like me, for real, for real. Batman beating the Joker and disproving his ideology is the climax of the film. But what is the falling action? Well, it's actually more superhero adventures. The film has decided to wrap up the Two-Face plot thread here. I find this a really interesting choice because normally you'd worry that one of two things would happen. The final scene would be more dramatic and exciting than the climax of the film, and therefore stripping it of its falling action. Or the plot would start to feel like it's dragging and the film would start to feel like it's too bloated. Reasonable worries, and yet, to me, this is one of... No. I'm a YouTuber. I gotta be extreme. This is my favorite scene of all time. Nothing beats this scene. I could only hope to have this scene's babies. Let's just discuss why the scene works. First off, this scene doesn't feel bloated or grander than the previous scene because the scale is significantly smaller. It's not boats of people blowing up or an ideological debate on the true nature of society. It's the family of one of our central characters and a individualistic ideology. It doesn't beat out the climax, yet it's still engaging because it's about characters that we care about. This scene is so focused on character that it finalizes the arcs of said characters, thereby cementing the theme of the film and not lasting a second longer. Second off, this scene is thematically significant to the climax, but also the Dark Knight trilogy as a whole. In fact, I believe this scene demonstrates why this film and the trilogy is called The Dark Knight. Now that we've broken down the structure of this scene, I want to break down the scene again, focusing on the statements I just made. Let's look at how the scene concludes the character arcs so that we can see how they prove the theme of the film. In this film, Harvey Dent is going bananas, even before he was cooked sunny side up. Here, he's threatening to kill some Joker gooner just to get some information out of him. Harvey Dent is trying so hard to drown out the chaos in the city and replace it with order. But when Joker, the epitome of chaos in this film, starts making the big moves, Harvey starts struggling. This scene is definitely the climax of his character arc specifically. Order has failed him time and time again, and even though he still wants order to work, it's clear that it's not going to help all of the time. All he needs is a little push to try to balance these concepts through the chaos of luck, which is ultimately what led him to this scene. This dude is so mad that he kidnaps Jim Gordon's family so that he can recreate this impossible scenario. I would say this is when Harvey's arc is cemented. He's not going to change anymore. Now he is merely an ideology that must be defeated. But Jim Gordon can't do anything. He started this film in this awkward in-between of order and chaos. And if you were in his shoes, would you really be all that different?
Gordon, I don't like that you've got your own special unit. And I don't like that it's full of cops I investigated at Internal Affairs.
If I didn't work with cops you'd investigated while you were making your name at IAI, I'd be working alone. I don't get political points for being an idealist. I have to do the best I can with what I have.
So Jim Gordon allows for this corruption to exist, and he allows a vigilante to be running around the streets, hopefully to clean up the mess that he can't. This way, Jim Gordon himself can stay straight-laced. He's still very by the book, but right now he's just trying to pick and choose what battles he needs to fight right now. Problem for him is, this leads to the Joker escaping, Harvey getting kidnapped, and Harvey becoming Two-Face. Or in other words, it all led to this scene where he's about to lose his family. Fortunately, Batman shows up, but imagine for a moment how insane this situation must be for him. Batman has been struggling this whole film with a similar problem. He wants to bring order to Gotham, but he's doing it through chaos. It led to Joker, it led to copycats, it led to Two-Face. What makes Batman so different from the copycats? Other than hockey pads. And better yet, what makes Batman so different from Two-Face? They both lived through life-altering tragedies involving the death of who they loved. Both of them can't escape that tragedy and use chaos as a way to try to undo that which cannot be undone. And Batman must certainly feel for Gordon. This is Bruce Wayne in Crime Alley. This is the tragedy that Batman was born of in the hopes that it would never ever happen again. You know what makes Batman so different from Two-Face? While Two-Face lashes out at both the guilty and the innocent out of vengeance and the bitterness of how unfair life was for him, Batman sees a man in the position of the man who murdered his parents, and his first move is to appeal to his humanity. Batman has practiced and will do the right thing even when it's hard, even when it means killing Two-Face to save a child. Yes, that's Batman's one rule, but he would have done literally anything else if he had the opportunity. I think it's pretty easy to see how he couldn't just make up a foolproof plan in the time of a coin flip. He throws himself and Two-Face off the building, killing Two-Face, but also, in a sense, killing Batman. The Joker won, despite the timing being off. He set up the pieces which led to Batman killing. Because even if you want to argue that this is not in fact Batman killing, he still takes the responsibility for the victims of Harvey Dent so that Gotham can maintain its white knight. Jim Gordon has learned his lesson. He cannot keep being so tolerant of the chaos in the city. He needs to do a better job of protecting this city, but also of protecting his family, which means no more tolerance for police corruption and no more tolerance for Batman.
You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I can do those things, because I'm not a hero. Not like Dent. I killed those people. That's what I can be.
No, you can't. You're not.
I'm whatever Gotham needs me to be. Call it in.
Generally speaking, you have two types of Batman stories. One that drives into his humanity and the limitations that come with that, all to show what the endurance of a man trying to do good can achieve. Or you have the power fantasy of it that leads Batman to be able to kill Azathoth with prep time. This to show how human limits can be pushed if you just work hard enough. Regardless of the type of Batman story you may prefer, they all go back to this scene. Batman, in his efforts to save people from the tragedy which took his parents, doesn't let his trauma and his hardship push him into the insane and horrid state of his enemies. Which is why I believe that this scene is the most thematic ending to a Batman film.